I'm Ariel. So how many UFC fans are in the house tonight? All right, I got one, two. Mixed martial arts, have you heard of that? Off the bat, a lot of people get confused. Mixed martial arts is to the UFC what football is to the NFL. The sport is mixed martial arts, UFC is the league. When I was a kid, I always looked up to the broadcasters. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be the guy on the field. I didn't want to get the fame, the glory. I just wanted to be the guy calling the action and, most importantly, asking the questions. So today I'm going to tell you why UFC, MMA is the best sport in the world. Not only that, why it's the best sport to cover, and why something what the great Woody Allen once said is what I try to do every single day and how I try to advance my career. So there I am in the 9th grade in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, reading Sports Illustrated in English class, and I read that the best school for sports broadcasting is Syracuse University. So in the 9th grade, I decide in a few years I'm going to Syracuse, and this is something that is a little rare in Canada. We don't often go to the States to do our education. I finally make it to Syracuse University, and I realize when I get there, I don't want to be like anyone who's here. Everyone wants to be the next Bob Costas, Marv Albert. They want to do baseball, basketball, football, all these things, and they're all going in this direction. I'm going to go in this direction. This is 2001. The UFC is, what, 8 years old? It's certainly not as popular as it is today. And I remember telling my parents, I said to them, in 10 years, this sport is going to be mainstream. And executives are going to look for people who know what they're talking about, because they don't, put them on TV, and I'm going to climb the ladder faster than all these other schlubs trying to be the next Bob Costas, and I'm going to get a great opportunity. They were very supportive and said, go do your thing. So I graduated from Syracuse University 3 years later. I had my own radio show there. My mom was my kind of call screener. My show was so ghetto that my mom in Montreal would call the guest, because I couldn't make outgoing calls from the studio. She would call the guest, pretend to be my producer, call me on conference, and then we would do the show at 7 a.m. It was basically me talking to my mom because no one else was listening, but it was great. And it prepared me for what I'm doing now. So I graduate, but I end up in TV production for a few years. I finally make it to Spike TV in 2007, which at the time was the home of the UFC. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to end up behind the scenes. I'm going to work in production. It's going to be great. I finally kind of made it to the UFC. After my 3rd day at Spike TV, I realized this was the biggest mistake of my life. Spike TV, actually, these executives, they don't do anything. The UFC actually does all the work, and they just kind of go along for the ride. So after a week there, so I waited a couple days just to make sure I was making the right decision. After a week, I went to the top executive at Spike. I'll never forget this. I said to him, I got to go. This isn't for me. He said, this is going to be the biggest mistake of your life. You're going to learn and live to regret this, and you're being very unprofessional right now. I said, that's cool. You feel that way, but I have to go. I got to follow my dreams. They made me stick around for a month. That's how mad they were at me, but everyone ignored me. So I'm sitting in my cubicle for a month, and no one talked to me. No one wanted anything to do with me because I was the guy who took a job and then quit a week later. During that time in my cubicle was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. That's when I started my own blog. I called it jerrypark.com. Why? Because that was the home of my beloved Montreal Expos way back when, who at that time were no more. They left, they moved to Washington. I was just so surprised that that URL actually existed that I bought it and christened it the Coliseum of Combat Sports. October 19, 2007, I started and launched this blog after Spike TV finally let me go. They took off the shackles. And every day, my goal was, from October 19th to April 1st, 2008, I was going to put out a new interview with a fighter. I sent out 50 MySpace messages a day. Whoever wrote me back, I would do an interview with them and I'd post it. And after some time, I was gaining some momentum. I was gaining some steam. And it was great, and people started to notice me. But I couldn't get a job, and I said, April 1st comes, no job, I'm out of here, I'm going back to TV production. March 28th, 2008, I'm about to reach my deadline. Just so happens to be my future wife's birthday. I get a call from the Wasserman Media Group, which was launching a new website called MMArated.com. They said to me, we want you to run the site. I said, I don't like this site. This site is being called the MySpace of MMA. This is the worst idea possible. Let me do it how I want to do it. Let's do interviews. Let's break some news. Let's be different. They said, okay, how much do you want to get paid? I said, $70,000. At Spike, I was making $35,000. I doubled it, and they said, sure. So I couldn't believe it. They gave me the keys to the car. We were doing great. And we were breaking news. People started noticing me. I decided that I'm going to come with a microphone flag. I was going to come with a microphone. I was going to dress up a little bit. And I'm going to actually cover the sport the way I think it should be covered. The sport that I thought a few years back was going to hit the mainstream 10 years later. Remember, 2011. So the site's going great, but then it gets sold. The parent company got sold to another company, and just a few months later, I only lasted 6 months there, they pulled the plug on the site, unfortunately, and my dreams were up in smoke. Actually, for 4 or 5 months, I couldn't get back into the MMA media game because remember, a lot of people aren't covering this sport professionally. The New York Times isn't there, ESPN isn't there, USA Today isn't there, so it was hard to get back in. But finally, Versus.com, which is now NBCSportsNetwork.com, they gave me a shot. AOL gave me a shot in April of 2009, and I've been covering the sport ever since. I'm the 3-time MMA Journalist of the Year. I have over 180,000 Twitter followers. I consider myself, in many ways, the eyes and ears of the fans. I am a fan. I just grew up doing this, and then in following the sport. And then in August of 2011, the UFC signed a historic 7-year deal with Fox Sports. It was the biggest deal in MMA history and combat sports history. They're being paid reportedly around $100 million a year. And August 2011, remember, 10 years ago, September of 2011, I told my parents, sport's going to be mainstream, and an executive's going to look at me as one of the guys. Fox Sports hired me to be one of the guys. I interview the fighters backstage. I'm there when some of the greatest fighters, greatest fights in the world. We just had one of the greatest fights of all time on Saturday in Toronto. I was there backstage interviewing the winners, and it's a dream come true. And why do I say Woody Allen taught me all of this? Because Woody Allen once said, 80% of success is just showing up. I don't think I'm better than my competitors. I don't think I'm better than the guys trying to move up the ladder right now. But I just said to myself and my family, I'm just going to go to every event. I'm just going to be there all the time. And until people realize that he may not be the best at what he does, but he's always there, that's when I know that I made it. Because there are other people doing some shows here and there. I'm just going to go to every event. Even if it means I miss my family, my friends, I'm just going to go to every event. 80% of success is just showing up. Just be there, omnipresent, cover the sport professionally, cover it with pride, be different, be unique. And that's what I've done thus far, and I hope I can continue doing it because it is a dream come true to be covering the sport. Dream come true talking to all of you. Thank you so much.